It is not every day you hear this, a murder conviction overturned. But that's what a federal judge has just done in the case of Brendan Dassey, the man who appeared in the Netflix series Making a Murderer. Dassey was convicted in 2007 of the murder of photographer Teresa Halbach. He was 16 back then at the time of the murder, and he confessed to authorities that he helped his uncle Stephen Avery rape and kill Halbach.
We know, we just need you to tell us.
That's all I can remember.
All right, I'm just going to come up and ask you, who shot her in the head?
He did.
Why didn't you tell us that?
So I couldn't think of it.
Now you remember it? Tell us about that then.
Well, that is a confession, but he later recanted, and the judge says that it was the manner in which that confession you just saw was actually obtained that led to a decision to throw out that verdict. The prosecutors now have less than 90 days to bring him to trial again or let him out of prison. Laura Nyrider, co-counsel for Brendan Dassey, joins me live now. Congratulations on your work as a lawyer. That's some heavy-duty lawyering, being able to reverse something like that. I have a question for you. So often these appeals come up because a defendant will say, my lawyer was awful. That was part of your argument, but it wasn't the part that the judge agreed with in this case. It was just simply the mechanics of how that confession was actually obtained. Are you surprised?
Well, you know, this court did rule that Mr. Kaczynski's conduct in this case was inexcusable, which was gratifying to hear. But I'm glad that this opinion was based on Brendan's confession, because that goes to the heart of the matter. Was Brendan's confession fact or fiction? And the court not only concluded that Brendan's confession was coerced, but it also ruled that it had significant doubts as to the reliability of Brendan's confession, which is music to our ears. That's what Brendan's been saying for the past 10 years.
Well, it's going to be much shorter than that, just 3 months, effectively, that the prosecutors have to decide if they're going to retry. Do you think, absent the confession, because undoubtedly there will be no introduction of that confession in any kind of new trial, that they have a case against Brendan, or are they going to have to abandon all efforts to try to put him back in prison?
I think without that confession of Brendan's, there is no case against him. There's never been any scientific evidence, no eyewitnesses, no forensic evidence, nothing pinning him to this crime. All they've ever had on Brendan Dassey are words coming out of his mouth, and we're so thankful that this judge has seen those words to be what they are, just a work of fiction.
So, Laura, the reality is that that Netflix series is your friend and your enemy at this point, because everybody saw it. It may have pushed, it may have put a lot of pressure on the system in this particular case, and thereby any jury who comes into a new courtroom, absent that confession in the courtroom, they've still probably seen it or maybe heard something about it. So you can't unring that bell.
Well, that may be true, but there are safeguards in the system to make sure that the system works fairly. You know, as for this current ruling that came down on Friday, I have no idea whether this judge has even seen Making a Murderer. What I know is that the ruling we got on Friday was 91 pages long, incredibly in-depth. That judge painstakingly analyzed every word that was said to Brendan during his interrogation and every word that came out of Brendan's mouth. It was a decision based on the record, and it was the right result.
So I know you can't speak to the other case that, made the story, the Netflix, sensation that it is, and that's Stephen Avery's case. I know that's not your case and you can't speak to that case. But I also know that as an attorney and a professor, you understand how this works. Brendan Dassey's confession and his case was a linchpin in Stephen Avery's case. Does that mean that there will be a domino effect, more than likely, or some action will actually be taken in Stephen Avery's case? Will it possibly have an effect in Stephen Avery's case?
You know, I really can't answer that question. Those are questions that are better geared at Stephen Avery's current attorneys. We're representing Brendan, and we're celebrating on behalf of Brendan today.
How is Brendan? He's sort of a fascinating figure, and you know, he had trouble understanding a lot of the process, as we saw in that series. How did he take this news?
Well, he was in shock. He's intensely grateful. You can imagine, you know, he's been dealing with this for 10 years. As we saw in the series, he was 16 years old when all this happened to him. He's 26 years old now, and he's lived with this for 10 years. And to have a court finally see his confession for what it is, something that's unreliable and that was coerced, that means the world to him.
Laura Nyrider, it's great to have you on. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us about this. And again, no matter how anybody feels about this case, you are a good lawyer. You did something that is extraordinarily difficult to do, so congratulations for your work.
Thank you so much.